Dong Xishuang has been able to sail through the harem for so many years, relying not only on the power of her mother's family but also on her ability to calculate people's hearts. Since she has already made preparations to push all the blame on Yi Yanyu has no way to escape. The 500-tael silver ticket was turned over, and it did indeed have Yi Yanyu's name on it. Yi Yanyu was still unwilling and tried several times to see Shin Jin, but in the end, she only got a sentence from Shin Jin: "I have nothing to do with this person, and there is no need to come and pass on such news in the future." Because of the assassination of King Yongning, my marriage to Qing Yushan was postponed for several days. Qing Yushan later explained to me that he and his sister were sold to the Yang family as slaves when they were young, and his sister, Qing Yuro, because of her similar age to the eldest miss of the Yang family, became the personal maid of the eldest miss. When the eldest miss of the Yang family came of age, the Yang family planned to send her into the palace. But the eldest miss actually fell in love with a staff member of the mansion, and the night before entering the palace, the two eloped. The Yang family had no choice but to let Qing Yuro take the place of the eldest miss and enter the palace. Firstly, Qing Yuro was of similar age to the eldest miss and had an outstanding appearance. Secondly, Qing Yuro had served the eldest miss for many years and was very familiar with the rules of the noble family and the habits and preferences of the eldest miss, so even if she was sent, it would not be easily exposed. Because she was already living under someone else's roof, Qing Yuro had to agree. But she couldn't abandon the young Qing Yushan, so she asked the Yang family to return Qing Yushan's freedom and gave Qing Yushan some silver to leave the Yang family. At that time I thought of joining the army, and if I made contributions, I could enter the palace and be rewarded by the emperor. At that time I could see my sister from a distance. Qing Yushan was immersed in his memories, with a bit of tears in his eyes. Unfortunately, although I was promoted and rewarded, it was only when Achi ascended to the throne that I was transferred to the capital. At that time, my sister had been dead for 2 years due to illness. In this life, although I was reborn, it was a year ago. In both lives, my sister and I had no fate to meet. He was originally a tough general on the battlefield, but now he couldn't even finish a sentence without his eyes turning red. I really want to see my sister again, eating the osmanthus cake she made for me, and sighing, "It's great that we both survived," he said with a bit of a choke. I didn't know how to comfort him for a while, so I took out a silk handkerchief from my sleeve and wiped away the tears from the corners of his eyes. My hand was surrounded by a warm palm, and I was hugged by him, with his arms tightly around me, as if he wanted to imprint me in his arms. Hot tears fell, burning me slightly, and then slowly slid down from the side of my neck. The heart is separated by flesh and blood, but they have never been so close to each other. The day the imperial edict of marriage was delivered to the Wun residence, after the eunuch read it, he also quietly handed me a piece of parchment with the words "Greeting to Aunt" written in a strong and powerful stroke. I shook my head and laughed. This emperor nephew is really naughty. No wonder Qing Yushan is always worried and occasionally has to take action to eliminate disasters for him. Just after sending away a group of eunuchs, a group of guards came, saying that Yi Yanyu wanted to see me before she died. I originally planned to refuse. After dying in the last life, I turned into a ghost and watched her and Shin Jin live for decades. In this life, I would prefer never to see each other. But the leading guard said again, that Yi Yanyu said she knows the list of the rebels that King Yongning gathered in private, but she can only say it after seeing you and General Qing. Today, I came to invite the girl, which is also the intention of the emperor and the minister of the Ministry of Justice. Didn't Qing Yushan eliminate King Yongning that day because he knew that King Yongning would threaten Shao Qi in the future? Doesn't Qing Yushan know the followers under King Yongning? I came to the prison with doubts, and Qing Yushan arrived a step later than me. Qing Yushan shook his head in the face of my doubts, and whispered in my ear, "I was killed by King Yongning's dark hand on the battlefield in the last life, so I took the opportunity to eliminate him when he came to the capital during the palace banquet this time, to avoid night-long dreams. As for his plan to rebel, I don't know anything about it." "So that's it?" I nodded. "Ning, can you tell me how Achi lived after I died in the last life?" Qing Yushan's words were heavy, pressing on my heart. "That's all in the past. In this life, you will be able to protect him well." I comforted him. Qing Yushan understood the ending of the last life hidden in my words, held my hand in return. "I will also protect you." I lowered my head and hooked the corner of my mouth. It seems that I like him more and more. When I saw Yi Yanyu again, the fine brocade was replaced by prison clothes, the fair skin was red and muddy due to the injury and not being combed for a long time, the long hair was messily draped on the shoulders, the original graceful lady of the family, now it looks like a beggar on the street corner. When she saw me and Qing Yushan, her dim eyes suddenly lit up, she pounced forward, staring at me intently, and tried to raise the corners of her mouth. Wen Ning, I heard that the emperor gave you and Qing Yushan a marriage today, congratulations. Without Shinjin, you still have another man who is willing to go through fire and water for you. It's great. Enough. I frowned and interrupted her words, you called us here today, not to say these nonsense, right? Ha ha ha. Yi Yanyu suddenly started clapping, Wen Ning, you are worthy of being the female protagonist, you can see this matter. But you are not the real Wen Ning either. Yi Yanyu suddenly stopped smiling, you are just like me, you are also a person who has passed through. Do you think you are the female protagonist because you have stolen the aura of the female protagonist? Yi Yanyu's words made me confused, stop talking nonsense. Don't pretend, aren't you tired of speaking these awkward classical Chinese? If you are not passing through, how do you know that King Yongning will go to Iha Hall for an affair and then stab him back to defeat me? Otherwise, how do you know to save Shinjin earlier than the original female protagonist? Why did you buy the fortune teller to slander Shinjin as a wife killer after you took a fancy to Qing Yushan? Yi Yanyu came out half of her head, her eyes almost cracked. All of this is simply your fabrication, I know Wen Ning, I fell in love with her in the previous life, she is definitely not the person you said who is scheming and coveting fame and fortune. Qing Yushan's words were not loud, but they knocked hard in my heart. In the previous life, it was Shinjin who designed to take her by force, as for what you just said, Ninger has already told me, she always thought that person was not Shinjin, so she would save him. Past life? There is also a past life? There is only one life in the book, Wen Ning and Shinjin are the protagonists, they fall in love after marriage, Wen Ning helps Shinjin to rise step by step in the officialdom. Yi Yanyu looked at me and Qing Yushan in shock, you. Are you reborn? I began to connect Yi Yanyu's seemingly inexplicable words with the previous life, Yi Yanyu is not the real Yi Yanyu, but a person from outside the world. According to her, this world is just words on paper, and I and Shinjin originally had a good marriage in the book, and the original Yi Yanyu and Qing Yushan were just a passing role. The Yi Yanyu of the last life is the same as the one in front of her, but she did not reborn like me and Qing Yushan, but because she knows everything about this world and what is about to happen, including my and Shinjin's temperament. In the last life, Yi Yanyu said that she and Shinjin were childhood sweethearts, and they were deeply in love when they were young, but now it seems that it may just be a lie she used to stimulate me. If Yi Yanyu really made Shinjin fall in love with her first, Shinjin would not have tried to marry me in this life. The only explanation is that Yi Yanyu knows that Shinjin yearns for official fame and fortune, so she proves to Shinjin that she has the ability to know everything in the future, and the condition is to let Shinjin marry her and turn a blind eye to her actions against me. Given Shinjin's efforts to marry me after learning about my rebirth in this life, Shinjin will definitely agree to Yi Yanyu. In this life, Yi Yanyu, like the last life, wanted to take away Shinjin, but she didn't know that I was reborn, and everything was developing in the opposite direction from what she originally knew. She was forced to use Dong Xishuang to kill with a borrowed knife, but Qing Yushan, who was reborn, killed King Yongning instead, leading to a reversal of the situation. I nodded, I am not what you said, a person from outside the world, but I saw through Shinjin's true face in the last life, and I decided to break off the marriage with him in this life. And you have been persistent in both lives, but in the end, you didn't get him to be sincere to you. What are you talking about? Do I and Shinjin also have a past life? Yi Yanyu changed her madness just now and looked a bit lost. I nodded slightly and told her everything about the past life. Sincerely, in the end, it only resulted in being abandoned by her husband and son. But after saying all this, I also personally exposed the lies I had woven for Qing Yushan. After hearing this, Yi Yanyu fell into contemplation, leaning against the wall quietly, occasionally giggling. I and Qing Yushan couldn't stay for a long time and left quietly. Qing Yushan didn't question me when I was telling Yi Yanyu about the past life, and he just listened silently, only occasionally when we looked at each other, the loneliness between his eyebrows and eyes directly pierced my heart. He said that he fell in love with me in the previous life. But I am no longer qualified to ask whether this is true or not. I'm sorry, Kropka. I mustered up the courage to look at him. The sunlight came from the side, walking on his strong side face. In fact, not all of Yenyu's words are false. I was only heard of you in the past life, and it was not about secret love. You are indeed a life-saving straw I found to get rid of the past life. Emotion stirred in his clear eyes, and his lips were thin and tight. I will ask the Emperor to take back the decree, and I will bear all the punishment. I have disturbed you a lot recently, please forgive me, General. I think we don't have to see each other in the future. I forgot how I returned to the Wun residence that day. I only remember that it was raining heavily that day, and I took advantage of the sound of the rain to cry for a long time. Yenyu wrote down all the rebels of King Yongning without missing any, and even went into detail about the placement of King Yongning's troops. There were several pages full of information about Xin Jin, and on the back of the last page, he wrote a line with blood: "It can't be given to others even if it's ruined." After writing these, she committed suicide by biting her tongue, and I don't know if she still has a chance to return to her own world. After that day, I never saw Qing Yushan again. I wanted to go to the palace to ask Shao Qi to take back the decree, but I was asked back several times. Now it is the time to eliminate the remnants of King Yongning, and I think Qing Yushan and Shao Qi are too busy to take care of it. I heard that Xin Jin escaped before the court arrest, and his traces and those of the old lady Xin could not be found throughout the capital. Xin Jin is a cunning person, and it will take some time to completely eliminate him. My mother doesn't know that I have already broken up with Qing Yushan, and today she took me to the temple to offer incense with great interest. I watched my mother devote herself to Buddhism, and I felt very uncomfortable. I don't know how to tell my parents about breaking off the engagement with Qing Yushan. I was feeling upset, and I sent Qingling away to walk around by myself. But as soon as I got to the back of the woods, I was attacked, and the pain came, forcing me into a coma. When I opened my eyes again, I saw Xin Jin's face full of gloom. "So you didn't leave after all?" I endured the severe pain on my back and sneered. "Don't worry, before I leave, neither you nor Qing Yushan will be spared." Xin Jin smiled. "If you want to use me to lure Qing Yushan, I advise you to give up this idea now. Qing Yushan is already tired of me, and in a few days, the Emperor will take back the decree of divorce. He will definitely not come. I personally extinguished his love, how could he come to save me? Or, even if he comes, he will never show you any mercy because of me. I suggest you turn yourself in as soon as possible, so that the old lady Xin and you can still keep a whole body." "A whole body?" Xin Jin sneered and interrupted my words. "If it wasn't for you and Qing Yushan to reborn and mess everything up, would I be in such a situation? Even if I die today, I will take you with me. If it wasn't for you to assist the tyrant in the past life, how could Qing Yushan die miserably? If it wasn't for your greed for power, and thus indulging Yenyu's actions, how could I die of resentment? The reason why I and Qing Yushan were reborn is all due to you." I gave the words back to Xin Jin one by one. "In this life, if it wasn't for your constant entanglement, and after knowing I was reborn, you forced and lured me to marry you, Yenyu would not have set up a trap to kill me. If it wasn't for your ruthlessness to Yenyu, how could she turn from love to hate? Xin Jin, in the past 2 lives, the person you love is only yourself. And all of this is you trapping yourself. Enough." Xin Jin shouted loudly, his eyes were bloodshot, and his palm raised to slap me. Just as I closed my eyes to accept this slap, I heard a whoosh in my ear. When I opened my eyes, there was an arrow stuck in Xin Jin's palm. He gritted his teeth to pull out the arrow, bandaged it casually a few times, and then walked to the window with a sword in his hand. Several people in black tight suits with masks came in. "Master, the official pursuers have surrounded us here." Xin Jin's temples were tense, as if he was trying to endure with his teeth clenched. The sword tip swayed in front of my eyes. "Take her out and block the front." So those people stuffed my mouth and pushed me forward with my collar. "I have already died once. If you say I am afraid, it's not that scared. Compared to death, I would rather hope to help Qing Yushan this time. Xin Jin, here has been surrounded by us. Running is only a dead end. If you know what's good for you, let go of the hostage, so as not to die too ugly." Qing Yushan's voice echoed in my ears, and soon I saw Qing Yushan leading the soldiers to approach, a dark crowd, more than enough to deal with Xin Jin and these death soldiers. The cold sword edge was pasted to the skin, and the pain spread along the sword edge. Qing Yushan, if I die, she will die 100 times uglier than me. Xin Jin said, holding the sword handle and exerting a little force, and I could clearly feel my flesh being cut. Stop it! Qing Yushan shouted, and I looked at him. Perhaps I was hallucinating. His eyes were full of worry and pity. What? General Qing wants this person? Xin Jin's eyebrows raised, also, but there must be something to exchange. Before he finished speaking, I forced myself towards the sword edge, seeking death. Qing Yushan, don't care about me. This life, just when I return yours. Since all of this started with my suicide in the last life, let it end with my death. I closed my eyes, as if I was back in the last life, but the difference was that before I closed my eyes, I saw Qing Yushan running towards me, the one I was truly moved by. The sound of fighting poured into my ears with the wind, and the blood was hot and bright like fire. I seemed to be in the dark, walking aimlessly, not knowing how long I had been walking, faintly hearing someone calling me Ninger. There were my parents' voices, Qingling's, Qiao Ruoyan's, and his. Wait, he. Light shone through a crack, and I walked towards the light, seeing the light falling place getting bigger and bigger. The figure in front of me was blurry, and when I looked closely, it was the face I had been thinking about thousands of times in the dark. Ninger, you occupé? Qing Yushan's gloom just now was gone, and the joy was hard to hide. Tears were hanging in the corners of his eyes. He held my hand tightly. Ninger, don't leave me, okay? Those days I often secretly went to see you. I knew you didn't like me, and what happened before was just for using me. But Tears fell on the back of my hand, burning my nose a bit sour. But I really fell in love with you in the last life, the last time I saved you from Xin Jin's hands. It was not accidental, I did it on purpose. I just wanted you to remember me in this life, but in the end, I became greedy and wanted more and more. I want to marry you, I want to grow old with you. I know I am a bit clumsy in some things and don't please you, but I will protect you well in this life. Ninger, even though Xin Jin has been eliminated now, please don't abandon me, don't divorce me. I took out my hand with difficulty, and my index finger sealed his lips. In fact, I didn't say some words at that time. At that time, I was afraid that you would dislike me, so I didn't dare to tell you that although I and you were indeed playing at the beginning, I have been immersed in it and unable to extricate myself. So, Qing Yushan, during my upcoming convalescence, you will have to work hard to prepare for our wedding. I watched Qing Yushan nodding foolishly, crying and laughing. I teased him, crying like this? Where is the dignity of the general? Qing Yushan sniffed, with a serious expression. This is called tears of joy. In the last life, I was walking on thin ice in the Xin residence, and in the end, I was still abandoned. It was only in this life that I realized that there really was someone who loved me for 2 lives.